Hello, my friend, and welcome to the study. It's so good to see you today and spend some time with you. If you are in the Northern Hemisphere, you might be feeling the heaviness of the days of senescent autumn, the short daylight hours, and the long evenings. The changing of seasons can always make us feel a little tired, fatigued, in need of some warmth and comfort, some gentle inspiration and intellectual stimulation to get us through. Well, you're not alone. Here in the study, I have just the thing to keep you company and send you off to sleep. This is a copy of a page from a collection of poems by Baldric. No, not Edmund Blackadder's Dog's Body, but the Archbishop Baldric of Dole, or, as he was known on the continent, Baudry de Bourgueil. He lived from about 1045 to 1130, was abbot of the wealthy Benedictine Abbey de Bourgueil in Anjou from 1077. And then in 1107 he was made Bishop of Dole-en-Bretagne, and in 1108 Archbishop. From humble beginnings in Main-sur-Loire, Baudry became highly educated and spent his time at Bourgueil, studying and writing in the abbey's well-stocked library. He travelled to attend councils of the church in France, keeping records, witnessing momentous charters, and taking part in the Council of Clermont in 1095, where Urban II declared the First Crusade, which Baudry would write about in his work on the First Crusade, the work for which he is most well known, Historia Hierosolumitana, or the History of Jerusalem. In addition to official duties, he was an active participant in an association of Latin literary writers that has come to be known as the Loire School. He wrote his Carmina towards the end of the 11th century. There are 256 poems, comprising around 8,700 verses. Some poems are only a few lines long, while others are over 1,000. Baudry's verses vary in their subject matter. There are poems about the Trojan War, some are addressed to monks, some to abbots, and there are other poems about friendship. Baudry tries different styles, just as he does subject matter, playing with hymns, satire, epic, epitaphs, and elegies. What has interested many scholars, however, are his poems about the physical writing process itself, and how the manuscripts are made, which he describes with delightful charm. Writing about books, wax tablets, copyists, and a curious heroic comic lament about a broken iron stylus. Baudry's collection of poems survives in only one manuscript, now in the Vatican Library in the Reginensi Latini collection, of which there are 1,986 manuscripts that have been digitized. The Reginensi collection originated with the personal library of Queen Christiana of Sweden, originally a Lutheran who converted to Catholicism in 1652 at the age of 26. After abdicating the throne, she travelled the continent, settling in Rome in 1655. When she died in 1689, her library was bought by Pietro Ottoboni, the future Pope Alexander VIII, whose library was purchased by the Vatican in the mid-18th century, and the Reginensi Latini collection joined the Biblioteca Vaticana. Baudry's Carmina are catalogued as Reginensi Latini 1351, and it has been surmised that he had this with him when he travelled across the Channel to Worcester at the end of the 11th century, and we can see that he was protective and very fond of his books, as if they were his truest friends. Let's have a look at the Biblioteca Vaticana digitized manuscript of Baudry's poems. Here we can see the website with the manuscript completely digitized at the Digital Vatican Library. And there is our frontispiece, our paste down page. I'll show you the catalogue there, Migne, and we've got our Regina Latina 1351. You can see how some of the pages are quite aged. And here we have our earlier medieval catalogue listing in the frontispiece of the original manuscript. Some of it's very difficult to read as it's aged a bit, but we can see the later Vatican Library stamp. And looking at some of these pages, we can see some different hands and some beautiful red and green rubrics that Baudry wrote about, and also some scribbles, possibly from a scribe or maybe a reader. And this is the page that has our poem on it. And you can see the digital watermark from the Vatican Library and some notes from the 17th century when this came into the library. Folio marking number 5, and we have 5 recto here, and some red rubrics, as well as a beautifully decorated yet faded initial. So we're going to use our Rhodia notepad with the coated cover, and we'll do a transliteration and interlinear translation, and then we'll try to put it into good English expression. And we can see the first word has a decorated initial with a V. Wade. Wade. And we have our punctuation there. Wade. And now we have our little subordinate here with these S's. The stylized S. Manus and multas. Looks like I've got not enough us in the us. There we are. And subiturus. And each one of these little uncials we can see. Uncial letters. They're not as close together as some manuscripts, so it makes it nice and legible for us. And we have our et, very common form of et there. Atria, which we can see this stain coming in. Atria. Multa. The U is drawn almost connected at the top, but we can see that it is not an A, and there is our punctuation for that little clause there of participles. Next line we can see our red initial V, vade. Vade liber. Liber. And trepidus. You can see how the cross on the T is at the very top of the stroke. Trepidus. And there's another of our S's. Can you make that out? We've got a D, an I, an S, and then a C, disc, an I and a D, discid, and a U, with an I in front of it. So you see we've got an I and the U with a strike over it. It's not a macron, but an abbreviation for because we have an ium ending. Discidium. So sometimes we have to look very closely at these. It's not an N, it's not two I's, but an I and a U and a little abbreviation for an M, so we don't take up too much space in the manuscript. Next, we have something that might be a little bit difficult to read because it's a bit faded, but we can just make out an M and an E and a T and a U, metu ens, and that is our present participle and the punctuation at the end of the line. Next line we have our green rubric for the beginning of the third line. Wade. And another abbreviation. This one we can see an M and an S with an abbreviation. And this is going to be a US meus. Vade meus. And sine me. And we have punctuation there. Carmen and sine again. Sine nomine and this one. Look at that. U, A, and you can just see the D, E, which makes another wade. I don't see any punctuation here, but I'm going to put one in because we know that wade is imperative for hurry, come now. And to our next line. So we've gone green, red, green, and now we're on the red line. And this is a C. Causa. And we have a punctuation mark. And now we have some more interesting abbreviations. Causa PR, we can make out ICIPIO. And this one's very interesting because I think this is not so much an abbreviation, but it looks as if it's been possibly put in afterwards as a correction. So principio, because it's a complete N rather than a stripe. And there's our punctuation there. Consule. Another little punctuation, it's very nice. Fine carens. And there is our punctuation there. Now we're at the green line and an abbreviation, so not punctuation. We have a green S and an I and a Q with an abbreviation, two little dots there, which will be que, sique. Another abbreviation. What have we got here? You can see the horizontal cross over the top and a curve making a T and U and U. What do you think the word is with two U and a stripe? That's right, it's an M. So we have causa principio consule fine carens sique tuum nomen, and another vult. Two U's, one we'll write as a V, vult. You remember when we conjugated volo, nullo, and here we have it in the third person singular, vult. Another abbreviation. This curve goes farther down and has a cross. Looks very much like the fine. We can see that it is an F with an R and a stripe for an abbreviation and an M. Again, So what could we have that begins with FR and ends in Fratrum. And I've not left enough space there. But you can see we've got fratrum and another S. So this one doesn't go down as far. We can tell this is an S because it just has this tiny little mark there that doesn't go all the way through like the F does, and it stops at the bottom of the line. It's a very nice little S there for soli. And what happens here is we've got another L, two L's with an I. So we have to be careful we don't look at that as some kind of an H, which would be unlikely anyway. So we have soli and a C, quitudo, sollicitudo, and our punctuation, as well as what we might call a notation or breath mark for someone reading aloud. And next, we can barely see our red rubric, which is an N, nomen, quod, nice little relative, nomen quod, petitis, from peto, to seek, and addressed in the second person, dic sibi, non habeo, and our punctuation. And we will stop there and do a little bit of translation. So let's have a read of what we've written. Vade manus multas subitur et atria multa. Vade liber trepidus discidium metuens. Vade meus sine me, carmen sine nomine vade. Causa principio consule sine carens. Sique tuum nomen vult fratrum sollicitudo. Nomen quod petitis, dic sibi non habeo. So we'll use our mechanical pencil now. And what we have is come. Come, an imperative. And here our future participle, turus. And we don't have the subject for that yet, but subiturus, about to undergo or endure. Manus multas, and there's our us, so many hands. And atria multa, many halls or rooms, or what we would say, libraries, reading halls. And I think I will get rid of that comma that I just stuck in. So we see that we've got a participle phrase there. Vade, come. Liber trepidus. And trepidus is frightened. Liber book. Come, frightened book. And now we have the match for our future participle. The book that is going to endure many hands and many halls. Come, frightened book that is about to endure many hands and many halls. Now we have discidium metuens. Here we have our present participle now. And metuens is, if you remember, to be afraid of or fearing. Metus. Discidium. The best way we can express that is with discord, argumentation, not argumentation in the Aristotelian meaning, but disagreements, discord, or criticism kind of discord. Unease. Vade, come. Meius, again, our book. And this one is almost endearing one. Meius, my little book, my darling, my precious, come, my precious. So if you have a book of poetry or sketchbook or a book that you put your thoughts and feelings into, you always keep it with you. You wouldn't want to think about it going into other hands, into libraries where it will be touched by many different people and read. So here, Baudry is he's trying to console his book. He's a bit nervous. So he's speaking to his book, trying to allay its fears of being open to the reading public. My precious, sine me, without me. Carmen sine nomine, a poem without a name. Or even a song for that matter. Come. Vade. Causa principio consule. Causa, because or cause of something. Principio, of course, principle. And consule, advice. Or here we can say something like a concilium or council. I like that one, council. And fine, carens, there's another lovely present participle. So carens, being completely without, devoid. So this should read fine carens. So we have a poem without a name. Come, sine causa principio consule, without cause, principle, or counsel. Devoid, without an end or a close. And sique tuum nomen. Sique, if it happens, okay? And now we have our reported speech or indirect speech, the brothers. Sollicitudo is anxiety. So, if the anxiety of the brothers, and here's our verb, wishes, your name in the accusative. If it is your name that the brother's anxiety wishes to have, then what happens? Dic sibi, tell them. Nomen quod petitis, peto, to seek, the name, that you seek, non habeo, I do not have. I do not have the name that you seek. So let's express this now in more fluent English. Come, my frightened little book that is about to endure many hands and many halls, fearing the discord from this handling. Come, my precious. Without me, poem without a name, without a cause, principle, or counsel, without an end or a close. If in that action the anxiety of the brothers wishes to have your name, then you tell them, this name that you seek, I do not have. I hope, my friend, that you've enjoyed reading this little piece of manuscript with me tonight, and that you will drift off in the late autumn mists, all of the activities of the natural world muted and shrouded in mystery now that the world sleeps and is getting ready for the winter months ahead. And while it does, we, in our warm study with these precious friends, will comfortably and happily spend the days together. Be good to yourself, be kind to others, and, as always, be extraordinary.